And we are following some more breaking news. This just in, the Wisconsin DOJ now filing 10 more felony charges against 2 attorneys and an aide who were part of a scheme back in 2020 of fake electors. The charges allege they submitted paperwork falsely claiming that Donald Trump won Wisconsin during the 2020 election. President Joe Biden, though, won the state by about 20,000 votes. Their initial court appearance is set for this Thursday.